Never worked a day in my life in community pharmacy. Maybe it's been a while since I've done a formal introduction because I guess people don't think I'm a real pharmacist, so let's talk about it. And I'm not gonna lie, I actually am kind of offended that someone would think that I just went to pharmacy school and never worked a day in my life in community pharmacy, because I know I don't work community pharmacy anymore, but when I was first starting on social media almost 5 years ago, I was doing almost every day. So allow me to reintroduce myself. So hi, my name is Dr. Ethan Melillo, and I am a pharmacist, and I am licensed in Rhode Island and Texas. My pharmacy career actually started when I was 17 years old, working as a cashier up front, not in the pharmacy, but up front for Walgreens. And when it was summertime and I wasn't in high school, I was working full time, like 40 hours a week. I became very familiar with the ins and outs of Walgreens, and I learned that the struggles that we have in the pharmacy, they have them up front as well. Like, I promise you, people are just as mean to the front store employees as they are to pharmacy employees. So while I was working at Walgreens, I still wasn't accepted to any pharmacy school yet. But then I applied to pharmacy school and I was accepted to go to the University of Rhode Island. So when I started pharmacy school, I became a pharmacy technician. And because I was in a 0 to 6 program, it wasn't until my third year that I then became a pharmacy student, like pharmacy intern. And then I worked all throughout pharmacy school. And then I decided to do a residency with Walgreens still and the University of Houston. But this was my first pivot because I then went into Walgreens specialty, which is a little bit different than retail. My background actually is in solid organ transplant, which is not anything I do anymore, but that was where I did my residency in. And after my residency, I stayed on with the specialty district. So I worked in different specialty sites doing like fertility, cancer, multiple sclerosis. Then I moved back home to Rhode Island, where I was the pharmacy manager of our only specialty site in Rhode Island. There I did Hep C and HIV at the specialty clinic. But I will say it was far from a specialty clinic. It was a retail pharmacy, like that was labeled a specialty pharmacy. And so though we had 5 to 6 techs on at a time, specialty pharmacy is very different than retail because when it comes to certain specialty medications, you actually have to do a ton of documentation, which you don't do in the retail pharmacy setting. And you have to be following up and doing all this before a medication is sold to a patient. So imagine a mid-tier retail store plus doing all these additional tasks. We also blister packed. That was something I never saw Walgreens do before. Let's just say there was a lot going on. Oh, and also at this time, technicians were not able to vaccinate, so I was doing all the vaccines too. And then because I had such a wonderful boss, I decided that, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore and I need to do something else as a pharmacist, which was really sad because I'll be honest, I loved working in community pharmacy, but when you have coworkers that are not the best to work with, you need to change your job. So then I moved over into managed care, which I worked for Magellan Health. Pretty much the best way I could put it, it's like being a call center pharmacist for a PBM. So I did that for 2 years, and luckily that was when COVID hit, and so I was able to work from home. And I'll be honest, I love the job, love my coworkers. It did not really pay that well. It was about $100,000, which if for pharmacists, that is very low. And when you're only getting a 2-3% raise, it was definitely, not worth it. So then I actually made my pivot into ambulatory care. I worked for what's called Coastal Medical, which I think it's now owned by Brown Health. There I was a clinical diabetes pharmacist where I would prescribe, titrate everything diabetes for patients, because what we had was a collaborative practice agreement. And so under a doctor, pretty much I acted as if I was the patient's endocrinologist, because the patient would see the doctor, they would say, you have diabetes, and they'd give it to the pharmacist, because a lot of the times it would be a lot for these primary care physicians to be doing. And while a majority of the primary care physicians were pretty versed in diabetes, some of them honestly should not be prescribing anything for diabetes. But honestly, out of all the jobs I've had, that has probably been one of my favorite, because I loved being able to use my pharmacist license to the max. Because if you haven't caught on by me doing social media, I like to talk. And so I would allow my patients to have as much time as they needed to go through their medications, answer their questions. And that is something I absolutely love to do. And yes, sometimes would I be staying late talking to these patients? Yeah, because honestly, I didn't go into healthcare for the money. I went in it because I wanted to help people. Also, my grandfather, who's no longer here, was actually diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and died of pancreatic cancer. So for me, it was kind of a full circle moment to be able to help people as if they were my grandfather. Because I definitely think if he had a pharmacist in a corner, his diabetes would have been a lot better controlled. And then one day on my birthday, I saw a job opening for a pharmacist at L'Oreal. And I was like, maybe it's a sign from God. I should just apply. I did not think I was going to get it at all, because I've never worked in industry and I never did a fellowship. And so I applied for it, and I worked there for 2 years, and I absolutely loved it. Because of social media, I started getting interested into skincare, and so that was the perfect position for me. And honestly, it was so nice to work for a company that valued a pharmacist's opinion. And they also want to do so much to give back to pharmacists as well, because honestly, we're always forgotten. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and I decided that, I really, really feel passionate and I love talking to you all on social media and educating people because I want to be able to break down such complicated things. Because honestly, not everyone has time to go to a pharmacy and talk to a pharmacist or go to a doctor's office and talk to their doctor. So I wanted to use my platform to be able to give you information that you are then able to talk to your pharmacist or doctor when you see them. And so this past year I took a risk and I am now doing content creation full time. Am I scared to death? 1000%. But it's been amazing to be able to work with brands that I talk about all the time and to be able to make this a career without having you guys buy anything. Then as a bonus, because of my background working in the skincare industry, I am now an adjunct professor at the University of Rhode Island teaching a full 3-credit course about over-the-counter skincare. So I hope by doing that, it's going to show other skincare companies like L'Oreal that they need to have a pharmacist within their company. Because let's be honest, pharmacists are making over 400 million topical recommendations, and we are such a huge driver when it comes to sales. Because from my own community pharmacy experience, I know that when I recommend something, 9 times out of 10, the patient is going to pick up that same exact product that I recommend. Because as a reminder, we do not make money off of any product a patient is picking up. We are truly actually trying to help our patients out. The video was a lot longer than I wanted to be, but hopefully this little reintroduction helps show you kind of the actual experience that I have as a pharmacist.